I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, June 18th, 2019. You are at the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors at the Mitchell County Courthouse. We have in front of us an agenda, and the only issue that I see right now is that the county engineer might be a little late. So, is there any other changes? If not,
I'll make so move that we accept
Barb
the agenda.
made a motion to accept the agenda.
Second.
Stanley has seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Approve the minutes of the June 11th meeting. Hopefully we've read it. Any comments, questions, changes? If not,
I've already read it, so I'll move again that we accept the minutes.
Second.
Barb has made a motion. Stanley has seconded it. Roll call, Barb.
Aye.
Stan?
Aye.
Smollett, aye. So we've approved the minutes. County Attorney, general discussion.
I don't have anything.
Okay,
Item 11 on here says meet with Renee Von Brokeren to review final draft of the employee personnel policy manual and possible action. Would you want to be sit in on that?
I can.
I think
I
it
haven't
might be,
reviewed it.
well, I think it would be maybe beneficial.
I
You have
think,
some,
I think you all know my opinion on handbooks and policies.
I do, yeah.
I do not.
Legally, they mean nothing.
Oh, yes, you have.
Because
said
they
that.
start out with a provision that says this is not a contract, and the very last page you sign that says this is not a contract, it's not binding, you know. So I'm not a real big fan, you know. I mean, if they're not a contract and they're not legally binding and neither party has to abide by them, what do they mean? So that's, they're only used against you, you can never use them in your favor. So that's just my opinion on this.
I think it gives a good expectation, though.
Yeah, I agree. But just from a legal standpoint,
Right, I get it.
I guess it kind of gives both sides an idea of what is up, what can be done or resolved in a situation.
well, where you normally run into the problem is when somebody gets terminated. Okay, and then they look and say, okay, you didn't give me a written warning, you didn't follow this, you didn't do this.
Use it against you.
Use it against you. So,
Okay. Well, we'll leave that up to your discretion, whether you want to be here or not then. On our Russ Kephart, I did have a meeting with Russell here a couple of weeks back, and it was a good meeting. We had a good talk. We talked about different things, mosquitoes, fleas. I'm scratching. But anyways, he is got a dumpster there at New Haven, and he is doing some cleaning. Whether he's going to clean it up to what our expectations are, he says in 60 days he'll have things clean. I brought up the idea of maybe him moving out into the country, into a rural area, and rather not be in where people live. Even though that probably would be illegal as long as we don't have a complaint.
well, I don't know if it is because it's, you know, one area is zoned residential, one area is zoned agriculture, and they're completely different what you can have in certain areas.
Yeah. Well, anyways, he was in a good mood, and it wasn't a problem, but I did indicate to him that, you know, we didn't really want to push his buttons, and we didn't want him, you know, irritating us and stirring up his neighbors, and I questioned him on the animals, and I said, you know, we can't really prove the animals are coming from there, but your neighbors are complaining, and he can't shoot them because he doesn't have a gun. So that's one reason why he's got critters there. But anyways, he's gonna clean up, he says. 60 days, we'll see what happens. So anyways, that's how that turned out with Russell. But it was no yelling, no screaming, no, it was very easy going. So anyways, I just wanted to let you know about that.
Okay.
And if nobody else has any,
Well, at 9:15, we have that public hearing. Would you not be available at?
Yep, I can come back over.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Mark.
Yep.
We'll let the sheriff get the hot seat, Greg.
Yeah,
It's
good
all
morning.
yours. Good morning.
So I have sheriff's fees for you for the month of May, $2,790.11.
How many this morning?
Just one. We had 3 overnight, 2 returned to Floyd County, and we're holding just 1 now on a domestic court service day, so we'll see what that brings.
Have you had any calls at all on your signs?
A few, yeah,
Yes, I have, huh?
yeah.
Do you think
Mostly,
that-
mostly positive. Everybody that calls me, nobody's complained about it, so, yeah.
Well, they're scared of you.
I don't think so.
No,
Yeah, it's been good.
Good.
Yeah, one guy said he had to turn around and go back and read it. Laughed, called me right away, said he loved my sign, so. Anyway, they-
I posted it on my
they're kinda-
Facebook page and
they
I
make-
had all positive.
Yeah, they make people think a little bit.
Chuckle, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, actually, what I heard last, well, it was Sunday morning up at Carpenter, there's a crew that gets together and that, and they said that there was a lot of pictures being taken, not only of that sign, but our suicidal deer sign that, again, I realize Richie doesn't always like it, but these are tourist things that actually, by word of mouth, goes, to other people. They'll come driving to the county then to see this, and these are things that years ago people were promoting in the tourist industry, that signage is effective, so.
Yeah, so anyway, that's, yeah, kind of.
So move to approve.
All right.
And I'll second.
Stanley has made a motion. Barb has seconded. Roll call. Stanley.
Aye.
Barb.
Aye.
Smollett, aye. We approve.
I want to add a comment. Shouldn't we be getting something going on the roof situation? Should we put something on the agenda next time to get going on the roof situation, what we're gonna do?
Well, it's in the process. I'm just not hearing anything back.
What's actually going on in the process?
Well, they're figuring out what we have to do and what it's going to take.
Who's they?
Well, Dave Harto and then Kelly Anderson, and he's
Well, I
working.
talked with Dave, I did ask him, but he said we need to be actually saying, go ahead with whatever. So maybe we should have him come at our next meeting and explain in detail where they're at.
But we don't want to proceed until after the 1st of July.
Okay,
Well, we also would need
and that's fine.
an update on what they are proposing, what it's gonna
Exactly.
cost.
That's why I
and,
thought maybe we should be getting it, but if that's a case of
He's
July, we
working,
can put it on
they're-
in July.
They're working with a contractor or two, trying to get some rough ideas.
Okay.
Because if we reach that $100,000 mark, that changes the whole ball game again. So what we're doing is we're kind of sticking our fingers in
Okay,
here and
well,
there,
we can-
kind of getting bits and pieces out to find out where we're gonna end up with. But we can't do anything until after July 1st. So
July will be here fast.
Yeah, and so if we can get a bid on the roof, I'd also like to maybe take care of some of the, problems that occurred on the inside because of the water
About
coming
water.
in.
Okay.
Carpet like in Julie's office is
could
pretty much
that be
wore out.
something that wouldn't be involved with the roof though?
Yeah, it could be, I mean, that could just be a budget item of mine and I could take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Through my budget when
Yeah.
the roof is
That's what I'm
done.
We,
thinking.
get over that $100,000
Yep.
mark, then
I got you.
we'll start in a whole ball game. We've got
Yeah.
to.
So I
open it
won't
up.
do anything inside until the roof is done, but those are some things, just some tiles that need to be replaced. It probably isn't gonna amount to a whole lot, but we just need to keep it up.
Yes.
The building's 20 years old, so.
We're working on it.
What's that, Tuesday, July 2nd or something?
Okay.
Maybe we should put it on the agenda and then you can kind of give them a heads up if somebody could come and tell us what all you're thinking
Okay.
that needs to be done.
Somebody other than Dave?
Well,
Or-
no, if he's the one that's in the know, whoever,
I can talk to Dave, see if he could be here in a second. Probably need a,
Well-
the contractor's bid,
Dave and I
Right.
are still going to have
Exactly.
to go visit with,
Kelly, and
I don't know how the contractors, if they'll get a bid in by then,
probably not. Be nice to be able
Work
to keep
on
it local, have somebody local do it.
yeah.
but, yeah, that's
Well,
the
do you
thing.
suggest a later date that we meet on that then?
Well, think we get a bid in 30 days? You know, just from,
Oh, I think we
You
are.
would think,
how about towards the end of July,
okay.
23rd?
The last Tuesday.
23rd or 30th?
You wanna do 30th to be on the safe side?
What do you think?
Can always be moved
Give it
up.
a try.
We can
Let's
always
try that.
move it up.
Yeah, if they come up, you can let us know if they already have something in.
But,
Okay.
yeah, I'll get David and maybe we'll go antagonize someone here yet today.
They could measure it and give us some idea, ballpark figure maybe.
You have different situations in your roof, and you've had a previous contractor work on it, and he has a good idea as to what you need.
Yeah.
We're going to work off of his ideas.
It's fine by me.
Anyways,
Yeah, that works.
perfect.
Just a few other things for you. Update Steve with Carrie Pilgrim's retirement last month. Her full-time position is open. Hank Wagner is a part-time employee for us, has done a real nice job. I'd like to essentially hire him to replace Carrie's position. And then to replace Hank's hours as a PRN, I'd like to hire Ashley Johnson. Both good young people, and Hank does a nice job, and came recommended by jail captain and staff over there, so unless you're opposed to that, I'm gonna go ahead and do that,
Yeah.
fill those positions.
You,
Fine with your recommendation?
yes, you know more as to who has the abilities to fill these positions than we do.
Yeah, I had a family member apply also, and a little leery about the nepotism issue, and so they were qualified, but Hank still has more experience with our system, and he's the one that I want to put on. So,
Okay.
Makes sense.
In the future, I don't know that would necessarily be a problem. I mean, as long as we are transparent about it
Yeah.
upfront, and like you say, you can justify the qualifications. You know, in a small county like this, we don't have a lot of times opportunities to find top quality individuals, and
So I emailed Mark about it before I made my decision, and with the board's approval, I can hire family, but in this case, we have a good
but like I
employee.
said, in the future, why, I wouldn't necessarily discount that, as long as you can justify to the board why
Yeah.
that
Just as a
person would be
concern.
the,
Yeah. And then, I guess lastly, I just kind of want the board's thoughts on this. The deputies are answering calls anymore that seem to be more violent in nature. People are under the influence of drugs or mental health issues or just non-compliant, you know, and so oftentimes they have to go hands-on. Essentially, they have to fight the individual, and nobody's gotten hurt to this point. But I'm looking at essentially a less lethal program or tasers. You've probably seen them on TV and how they operate. Highly regulated by policy, of course. but it would probably keep somebody from getting hurt, not only our guys, but defendants and bad guys, I guess, if you want to use that term. Just curious on what your guys' thoughts might be. The price of 10 units and the training and all the equipment we need is a little over $13,000. Now that money could come from our room and board, the 60% that the sheriff's office has been allowed to keep by the board, and there's right at $100,000 in that account. I've never spent any of that money on anything. So that's a revenue source for that piece of equipment. They're pretty common across Iowa, across the country with police agencies. Up until recently, I really haven't seen the need, but if we can prevent somebody from getting hurt, it's probably a good purchase from my standpoint and the things we get involved with. So just throwing that out.
I do worry about you guys because people just seem to have much shorter fuses now too, even when they're not on drugs.
Yeah, they just, you're right.
Well, how about letting us think about it a week? I really have no problem with it, but years ago, I know we made a decision or two, as kind of a snap decision.
I think that's good to think about it for a week.
Yeah,
And I want to think about it more too, but that's kind of, the cost.
I mean, that way if we put it also on the agenda as an action item.
Yeah, I'm good with
I
that.
wonder if there's statistics showing the benefit. They've been around a little bit now, so
Yeah, there are.
I would think
Yeah.
somewhere there would be.
And I can, between now and next week, I can,
If you find anything,
Dig
maybe
into
send it
that.
to us even if you, yeah, and I'll kind of look too.
yeah. So anyway.
They'd be also a good deterrent, just the sight of one.
They are, yeah.
So, but you have the best idea as for what your officers need.
I think training would be the big deal,
It is.
to not be using it.
Well, it wouldn't be,
Really
it's
absolutely necessary.
only comes out in emergencies, just like your
Exactly.
fire.
And you never know.
Just like any other training, you can train for any scenario, but it can always be different
Oh, yeah.
from what you're trained for. Yeah, I wouldn't see any problem with it, and we can hold off for a week and
Yeah,
make a decision.
absolutely. Yeah, let's talk about it again next week. I just didn't want you to see a $15,000 bill come across and wonder what that's from. So anyway, we can talk about it again next week.
15 or 13?
Just a shade over 13,000. Yeah, I have the exact figures actually that I can
That's
bring for you. So that's really all I have.
Okay.
Did you run that by the county attorney? And
No, I haven't.
why don't you run it just as thoughts, just
Yeah, not a problem.
not to.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions for the sheriff? If none, thank
All
you,
right.
Greg.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good, safe week.
Glad the sign is generating some.
Yeah, a little bit.
Do we have the other two up yet? Or?
No, not yet. When they get the construction done on T-38, then we'll deal with that one. So,
Rich isn't here. Can we drop down to number 9 and get away with that?
Oh, yeah.
Approve new full-time and part-time hirees for the treasurer's office.
Why don't we have Shannon come down and,
Yeah, I can go run up and get her.
I can get her, Steve.
Well, you stay there. Robert.
just wanted to let you know that we offered the full-time position for my office to Cassandra Setter. She's from Osage area, and she's accepted. The new wage, starting wage will be $14.50 an hour, with 50 cents increase when she gets certified to do the DOT drives with her examiner training, and she will start next Tuesday. Part-time position, I offered that to an individual that applied for the part-time. She currently is working full-time in another job that's gonna be going away, and she declined the offer. So I do have another person I've offered it to tentatively. I will give you the name after the meeting, but she has not responded yet, so.
Okay.
And
So that's
what is transpiring that's causing these openings, or?
The first opening was because Jean retired. The second opening was because the individual that ran against me, my clerk, when she lost the election, started training to become an appraiser for real estate, and she finished the training and she resigned then because of that, so.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So move to approve.
Second.
okay, roll call, Stanley,
Aye.
Barb,
Aye.
Small aye, so we've approved Cassandra.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck with her. Hopefully your
Part-time
part-time
will work
person
too.
works out for you.
Okay,
Thank you. I guess we got enough time here. Items of note, meetings attended. Barb, would you like to give us a?
For the first time ever, I didn't have meetings. But I did listen to ISAC's legislative seminar updating on what was passed, such as mental health will allow an increase to 40%, so we can amend our budget on that if we need to. Children's mental health is now required, but no money was allotted for it, nor any guidance as far as to the boards on it. And then this would probably be for Lowell, contact ISAC if help is needed with the 2080. And they talked of a 1% tax for it, but it went nowhere as far as for paying for that children's mental health. REAP, which is Resource Enhancement and Protection, that's DNR stuff, was not fully funded. Backfill cuts for commercial and industrial property taxes were discussed again, and they've been discussing since 2015. So it'll probably get discussed again next year, but it was fully funded for this year. You now may register a boat in any county, not necessarily in your residence. Single point of contact, I'm not even sure what that is, was passed for 2 years. And ISAC was against this because they thought it should be done locally. Extra taxes were imposed on electric vehicles, and the rest was so brief and fast that I couldn't even write it down fast enough.
Okay. Stanley, we got a few minutes yet. Do you have any meetings you want to talk about?
Last Wednesday night, I went to McIntyre and to Goosey's. And this younger group, the progressive group that Lindsay Falk has basically started, they had a really good meeting. And they're looking at trying to, they think we have a lot of activities here in the county that part of the problem is that we don't really have a central point of communication, of explaining what's happening here, there, and, you know, I think I've mentioned before that, you know, there's only about 2 things that the majority of the people do in the county. Most things are minority activities. And in any event, they're working on trying to come up with a program that would readily make available what's happening this week, next week, and to a lot of activities, which...
Did they ever decide on a name? Sort of. A
Sort of, I mean,
tentative?
they call themselves the progressive group. I mean, now whether or not they really have an official
Well, I know they were talking about trying to have a brand, so maybe that'll be part of it.
Right, and they're working on that.
Sounds like it's a great group.
And they're actually, again, maybe Tony can shed a little light. Travis had a real short little film piece, again, trying to show why young people might want to either stay here or move here. Do you want to
Right.
expound on that a little bit, Tony?
The economic development, we're actually paying for a series of videos that is being created. The first one is, we've gotten a bus draft on, and it features a young family going through some high school sports and just the sense of community. It's very, very, very well done. He's in the process now of doing the next one in the series, which will focus on a local business and how they went about establishing their business, what their place in the community is. Our efforts are meant to show Mitchell County as an exciting, fun place to live and to create an image beyond just the beautiful red barn in the middle of a cornfield. We're trying to focus on people in Mitchell County, going through life, enjoying life, and having good opportunities. We're trying to follow on the same line as the governor, and they're trying to tell our story better. And so that's the approach that we are taking. I would like to comment that there was a recent video that is being promoted by the state that's on their Facebook page, that the state actually went out and put up a fake real estate office in New York City and listed actual properties that were for sale in Iowa to New York City people. And as they went through and found these great places to live, great homes, affordable, then they let them know, well, I'm sorry, it's not here in New York City, it's actually in Iowa. Would you like to go take a look? And so it was meant to educate the New York population that, hey, you need to give Iowa a second look.
That's
And
quite the marketing.
yeah, it was a great piece, and there was a lot of good positive feedback. I'm sure it probably ticked off a few people in New York City, but I think it did put us in a better light than we've been put before. And so that's what we're trying to do as well. And that's part of what we're doing with these videos. And that's also part of what this group, the Progressives, is wanting to do as well, is to do a better job of telling our story of what a great place it is to live here. So it's all kind of fits hand in glove.
It's important that other people find out what we already know.
Exactly, and that's all. And that's all we're trying to do, is to get people to take notice and realize, oh, we're not just a cornfield. So, that's what we're at.
I wasn't at that meeting, but I had an email yesterday from Lindsay from a follow-up on it that said at our next meeting, they were going to work towards finding the brand of our group and working towards a more focused vision. And I believe their next meeting is July 10th at 7 p.m. in the Metro County Conservation Building.
I was gonna offer, Stan, if ever you can't make it, maybe give me a buzz and maybe I can fill in for you.
Well, again, let's talk to the county attorney. I don't know that, as long as we're not making any decisions at all.
Well, the problem is if we're both there, if I'm gonna go, I probably would wanna speak up on some things.
Well,
And-
like you say, when the county attorney comes back, let's have that discussion so that,
I don't want any
I understand that, but if the county attorney makes a recommendation, if he says no, but, let's have that discussion when the county attorney comes back.
Good. Any more, Stan? If not, it's dangerously close to that 9 o'clock time. Is it
9:15
day? Oh, it's 9:15? Oh, okay, sure. Is you done then, Stanley?
Yeah.
Okay, my meetings. I had a meeting, Mitchell County 911, Chris Olson's the coordinator. We had a meeting June 12th, Sheriff's Office, and They had a quorum. Let's see, this one should have been maybe on the last meeting, or last week's minutes.
You had a meeting last Wednesday night, didn't you?
Oh, man, that would be it.
Did you
Okay.
guys talk about the manual? Emergency manual?
Yeah, we discussed, we approved the agenda. We discussed having geocom mapping upgrade. And what we have is running out, well, it's not supposed to, but they're changing the system. Anyways, they're gonna give us a little kickback of what we paid in.
That's correct.
And we'll start this new system, which will go for 3 years, and it'll be for 18,000 for the full 3 years. We had a vote, and it was passed. We had a discussion on the possible merging of the 911 department and the EMA department and have it one person. And they kind of
Was anyone
have,
opposed to that?
no,
I didn't think so.
we're having split hours, 50-50. The benefits would also be 50-50 between the two. And would use the county pickup. And the county would be reimbursed through the 911 would reimburse the county because it's the emergency management pickup. We still have to post that position. It isn't set in stone. It has to be posted.
Yep.
And the decision will be made in the future. And, but the motion was carried to combine both. But it's being posted by rules, you know, that's what we have to do. Nobody had any concerns on it being an issue.
I didn't think there would be.
Put together. Anyways, I also had a governance board, FMDCAT governance board meeting on Wednesday. That was through the telephone. They approved the transfer of money for the JCS transfer. Big Brother, Big Sisters contract will continue till the end of the year, and then the renewal will total $40,000 for both counties of Chickasaw and Floyd. Then there is a District 2, which includes Floyd and Mitchell, and that one is $30,000. I guess it's $40,000 for the total. And then there's a juvenile services that was a contract was $10,000, so it was $40,000 total. And they reviewed contracts, and they had a discussion for the 2020 priorities, and they had action. $46,000 was allocated to 2 contracts. And the mentoring contract update, and I think that's going to LSI, and that was approved. And they discussed about the June meeting that Melissa Clow, who is the administrator of the FMDCAT, she had a meeting with the providers, and it was discussed what their issues and duties were and what DCAT is all about. And the meeting went for a little over 30 minutes. Anyways, one last meeting, and that was at the landfill. And that was last Thursday. They approved the agenda. It was a full board meeting. There was nobody there from the public, so there was no citizen forum. They discussed financial statements, and they also discussed a policy for extended hours. So if the contractor, because it was windy, couldn't come in and dump his load, they would be able to stay open for extended time. And the contractor would be charged a fee for staying open. And it's $100 per hour with a $100 minimum fee. And they had action. There was motions, they had action. That was passed, so there will be that fee if you make them stay open because of the wind. They also talked about building their own treatment plant on the site, and what ended up being is that they're gonna dig into this, check on it, and they also discussed for buying a base station for the GPS. Even the landfill needs to know where they're putting their garbage, where they have to roll it, so they're not doing any extra dumping or rolling, and they know exactly the height, so they got an idea as to when they're, how far they're filling in the landfill. And the people that work there have been using their cell phone, using that as for their data to figure out where they're at. And the unfortunate thing with the cell phone to the tower, with the knob of the landfill, it got between and it didn't work. So what they're doing is they're going to buy their own GPS equipment at a cost of $12,750, and it will come out of the equipment cost. Action was taken, motions made, and it was approved. And there was nothing else explained or talked about, so that meeting is over with. So there's my 3 meetings. And now we're down to public comment. Does anybody in the public have a comment? I see we have a few new faces here. Do we have any comments? Dean?
Yeah. Hey, the Economic Development Group approved some grants recently, you know. Is there gonna be a list of who got the grants and who's doing the projects? put out?
Sure. Yeah, so there'll be a list, right, Tony?
Sure.
Yeah, it'll all be public knowledge.
Okay, and then the article in the paper said something about possibly vacant houses would be considered.
Tony, do you wanna address that?
Any vacant houses?
It said in the article, I believe at the bottom there, that vacant houses possibly would be considered.
The rules for the program, any project would have to be a minimum of $150,000.
I'm just asking what the, you know,
I'd have to look and see what context that was in. I don't recall that being part of the conversation. But again, any projects in the program, it have to have a minimum of $150,000, and it can be a renovation type project. But that's most of home renovation typically doesn't get to that level, so it wouldn't qualify. But by the guidelines, any renovation for $150,000, if it's in the urban renewal district, would qualify on paper.
I think it said, I think it said at the bottom, vacant properties, so I didn't know what that
Yeah,
meant.
and then for any commercial development, the property would have to be vacant to qualify for the program as well. That may be where the vacant came from.
Okay, you're talking about commercial
Commercial,
properties.
yeah, and any commercial development, yeah. That may be where that came from.
I don't recall us specifically talking
I
about.
don't either, I'm sorry.
We'll have to look at the paper afterwards.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay, and last time, did you say there were a couple of houses that were $185,000 houses?
180.
180? Do those don't have basements?
That's probably the case if there's a number that have just been put on slab. A lot of the new building anymore has been put on slab, so that's very, very possible.
And are those 3-bedroom houses, Tony?
If, I'm trying to just think through memory. I want to say there's a couple that are just 2-bedroom, but I think for the vast majority are 3-bedroom.
The 180 might have been 2. I know
Yeah,
I'd have
I'm
to
sorry,
look
I'm going
again,
off
I would
memory
want to
here,
quote
but-
it on that.
But again, they only qualify for the 25,000, not 30,000, because it takes a 3-bedroom for 30. So,
All right,
okay.
that's enough questions for now. I have multiple more questions.
Come on in, anytime.
Yeah.
You know where I live, right?
Thank you.
So you got another question, multiple board questions.
Oh, well, that's all right. I think I'm boring the rest of the people here, so I'll wait till the public hearing.
We have 4 minutes of time here yet we have to utilize, so. Rich has made it. Maybe he can burn up our 4 minutes. Would you like to step right up and sit right down here in the chair?
Should we wait for Lowell to get back?
Well,
He'll be back shortly.
we'll better wait for Lowell then.
What happened in Worth County?
It wasn't good. We had a couple employees get hurt
Oh,
working on a motivator. Thankfully, they all have heartbeats.
Okay, sorry to hear that.
I think they'll be fine, but it's gonna take a long time for one of them.
Well, I can remember being in the shop, working on that big equipment. We had the Oshkosh up on stands. It sat there for a full week on 4 jack stands. And one day I was standing in there, and pretty quick the jack stand started. Bang!
Really?
Right on the floor. It had no tires on it. Sat there for a week, nothing wrong. But then jack stand started, and the next thing it was sitting on the floor. Things happen. That's why they call them accidents.
That's what happened here.
So, yeah. Well, Lowell's back. Rich, we got 3 minutes
I
here.
can give you a 3-minute update. T38, I know they're trying to get the asphalt done in between rain. They've been kind of slow just because they haven't had a lot of trucks available to them, but they're still within their working days, so I don't even want to give you false hopes about it being open by the end of the week or not, because I really don't know with the weather. I mean, there's potential, but I don't want to give anybody any of that sense, because I don't know. They've got asphalt to finish yet, they still got paint striping to do, and we've got to do a little bit of, we're gonna do a little bit of extra on the edges of the asphalt shoulders with our trucks yet, so we're getting the truck ready to go. When we get a window opening, we'll do that too. So the rock run, we're trying to get out there and get the rock run done. We've been changing some of the rock gradation a little bit because we're putting a little bit bigger rock on some of these roads. They're so soft still while we're trying to run these trucks, and sometimes the trucks are even doing damages. We're trying to put it down. So in some locations we're putting 1.5 inches with fines down on a lot of stuff, and maybe that'll get pounded in and give us a little bit better base and a head start on some of the stuff. But we are changing some of the rock a little bit on that stuff, and maybe pulling some of that, what we call the surface rock, the 3/4 inch stuff. We might be yanking some of that out and putting some bigger rock in some of the other spots. We're just trying to keep up, and right now it's just,
with more rain,
we're-
we've been getting more complaints.
And the forecast isn't better.
we're doing what we can. That's all I can tell you. I mean, there's nothing with heavy loads that we've got. We don't always do the best for the road either. So I just ask the public's patience, because it's gonna be a tough summer.
Well, they're impatient, that's for
Well,
sure.
I understand life doesn't stop for it, but we can't be everywhere at once.
We do the best we can.
So anyway, that's the update I've got for you, I think, this week. Not a whole lot, but I don't know if you guys have anything you want to discuss.
Barb, Stan?
It's 9:15, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Richard, that's the end. I don't think we'll need to have any
Well, you
more.
guys got my email and phone.
Okay, thank you, Rich. It is 9:15. Is time for the public hearing on the proposed amendment to Mitchell County Urban Renewal Area. And I think this is the
Amendment.
correct. The urban,
Mr. Chair, I think it would be wise to ask, Mr. Heil is here from Northland Securities, and ask him to explain for the public's benefit what this,
you know what? It'd probably be better. So if Jeff, you'd like to come up here and
Yeah, unless people want to make comment first, but I can go over.
I was just gonna
basic-
say, maybe he would just prefer to, as the questions come up, address it right then.
Whatever way you want to do. I mean, I can just basically let you know where the finance position, what you're amending to.
no, I mean, we have to have some idea why we're having this,
Okay. We'll do that, we'll explain that, and then look for public comments and questions. I've prepared a couple.
I think you'll make more sense than what I would make out of it.
Oh,
thank you.
That's not good when Randy laughs at what I say.
I was prepared again, and I did check with Amy, your assessor. I did get the update. The Turtle Creek is online, January 1. And so, basically, what we have I got before you is, what I'm gonna explain to you is where you're at with the urban renewal, what you're gonna be amending to, what you as a board have before you. Now, the projects that you're amending to, those are all local, they're legal, your bond councils have put them in there, they are legal projects that to do, but that's what you choose to do with, for you to understand, do you have the capability to amend this and to spend the projects that the hearing is for? So that's what I'll explain, but as saying, what each project is a priority, as an advisor, that's a local decision. Your bond council has already approved that they are legal. So let's just look again. The first 4 columns is your urban renewal revenue. We got the 93 towers, you'll see, the 43 towers, and the new 56 towers. Those are the revenues, and then I have them combined together. The new Turtle Creek, I think Stan had asked me, what's the new value? I just got those from, over the life of that now, it's gonna be $25,180,000. You'll see down at the bottom total. Combined, all of the TIF revenue from just the winters, this does not include the chemical plant. This is just the wind turbines, okay? Is $69,282,251. I checked with my projections from what this has been going on, the actual numbers that you're looking at. My numbers are I've got about $50,000 less projection than the actual that the Department of Revenue projected. So because they adjust every year a little bit, and I've got just a little bit of, the conservative, so our numbers are definitely under from what the actuals are coming. Not much, but we're well within. So I wanted to let you know that part. So when you look at all of the projects, you'll see we have the next 4 columns are all the debts that we already have. We got the 2009 issue, the 2010. We got the courthouse. Last year we did the urban renewal. We had a taxable portion and a non-taxable. That was for the economic development of the housing, and then conservation, I forget what all the other projects we had. That was under 2018. And then I put in here the estimate of 2019 of now what we're talking about, the amendment, which is, if you'll see that column right before the total urban renewal debt, the hearing amount that is proposed is 3.8 million. I'm not saying you're borrowing, but that's the maximum amount. With the interest, you'll see that column. Ultimately, what we're looking at is, with this amendment, you've got $32 million, a little over $32 million would go against the $69,282,000, which is roughly that bottom number, clearing the bottom, 47%. So that's really, with this amendment, you really are looking at pledging 47% of the TIF revenue that's out there. So, to answer your question about the hearings, everything fits within, if you would proceed with this, you would still be under 50% of the revenues that are coming in.
Do I remember right that you really feel, just in general with most counties and that they could go up to 75% committed? And I mean, that's kind of the top, but that's, so we're quite a bit underneath what
Yeah, I mean, I've always said, whether it's debt capacity, it's a general rule of thumb in financing that we look at not going over 75%. There's reasons that some counties do go over it, and some cities, but I like to start having caution when we get up to 75%.
right, so when we're at 47%,
Well, you're
we're way underneath what, like you say, the possible maximum.
yeah, I mean, it's.
Jeff,
Okay.
what was the percentage last time around?
Well, we were getting up to 60, that was before Turtle Creek came in. So we were between, I gotta look back, I think we were around 66, in the mid-60s. We were under 75, you know, without this, but then when we added the Turtle Creek into, you know, now we're back into under 50%. And the other scenario, I'll just bring it up right now here. You know, Stan did, I know, you know, like Rich says, the road rock is a problem across the whole state. And I just did a scenario here. If you put $5 million of road rock down, of what that would do to your scenario. You'll see in the last column, right for the total, in this one, I estimated, you know, next year, if you did $5 million of road rock, if you look clear down to the right-hand column, you'd be at 55% if you added another, you know, if you was wanting to put a major investment into road rock.
Just to give, again, everybody a heads up, what I did ask Jeff to do is, knowing that we're having a lot of road issues, gravel road issues, I asked, what if next year we would, how much money could we actually spend on secondary roads? On basically gravel and that, and trying to get a lot of these frost boils areas in shape. And basically he said, you said what, 5.9 million is what you're showing here?
That's with interest, 5 million of net.
Yep, okay,
And then-
5 million in net
and then-
and interest.
Yeah.
And so this could be a possibility for next year, it wouldn't be today. And it's really by the time that, if we even wanted to do some action, we would be basically out of the construction season this year. But we easily could have this done to where next January, February, we would have this all approved so that
We have the option to go that route.
we would have the option, and that's what Jeff is showing here.
And the reason I think it's good to bring today is, as you look at all these other projects that you're looking at, is if you're looking down the road, that maybe something isn't important as rock. I mean, every county I talk to know that if you took action on this amendment, it wouldn't jeopardize another option down the road. And that's really all I brought it for today, is because sometimes you think, oh, if we take this today, is this gonna jeopardize may be an important thing we need to do next year or the year after. And that's why I think it's important to take a look at it for your decision-making, to know that what position you would be in. So, as you say, if you added, I just threw the number out because that's what Stan asked, what would $5 million look at? And that would put you at 55% rather than the 47%. So
Well,
you
some-
have some options, whether it's Road Rock or some other economic development project.
I would probably want to cut out some other things in order to do that, but I think our infrastructure is so important that we might have to up that, because we are really getting a lot of complaints about the roads. They're a mess, and I understand, that's their livelihood of getting those fat cattle trucks and the milk trucks all through that, and they're having a horrible time. So,
Well, another conversation that I have not had yet with Jeff, but, you know, some of the first windmills in Iowa are getting refurbished. And this very well could even be a possibility, I would think, with some of the windmills that were put up in Mitchell County in 2009, 2010. And if that was the case, would that start the basically process over again on TIF? If we had, I mean, if they done a major, you know, put a new head, new blades.
Well, it would have to. Is Amy in here?
no,
B might not, but what I would say is, it's gonna have to be new additional value. So, if it wouldn't be any, because that first 20 years, you can only use that one time in those 20
Right.
years. So, if all of a sudden that value, let's say the average, well, like these new windmills that are put in Turtle Creek with the substation, those are valued at $4.8 million. Okay, let's just use that number of 4.8. So it's used up in 20 years. So if they put new heads on and new blades and they still only value them at 4.8 million, your answer is no. Now, if it's 5.8 million, you could use the additional $1 million.
Okay.
But you cannot go back to replacement dollars and start over. So I would say more than likely on these, when these 20 years are up, you are done, and that value is gonna have to go back to the taxing district, because unless you're gonna have inflation and way new value for refurbishing them.
But that is a possibility, I mean,
It's a small possibility.
yeah, okay. No, I just want to have an understanding of the possibilities.
So really what we're looking at today is, you know, just an understanding of actual revenues, you know, and these are verified by, I pulled them up at Department of Revenue. So this, you can see this is our debt we have. Here's a proposed of a couple projects. That puts you in a position saying now, with this amendment, you know, you got some road projects, you got some conservation projects, and you've got economic housing projects. That's what's on your amendment. You need to decide, okay, here it is. Are we in a position to vote favorably to move forward with an amendment? And I guess that's what I want to explain to you this morning is, here's the financial position. Now, if you believe those projects, which are legal projects, are the ones that you want to amend, that's what you proceed. And I guess that's what, you know, you get public comment now, but I guess that's about all the extent that I would say on the financial position.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, are there any oral or written comments received prior to the public hearing?
I did visit with a few people in my district, and they were very supportive of what we are doing. There was no negative comments to me.
I've had both, positive and negative. More positive than negative.
I've had some negative and one positive, so. Anyways, now I have to open this up for comments to the public, right?
I'll ask Auditor Tesh if he received any.
I did not receive any.
Okay. So, are there any comments out there in the public?
Were you gonna give some upfront rules?
Oh, excuse me, yes, I would like to give somebody a 3-minute time period. I don't want somebody to get the floor and have it for half an hour. So, if you do, stand up, be loud, be precise,
State your name.
state your name, get across what you want to get said, and you'll have 3 minutes to do that in. And you'll have one chance to speak. So, I hope I'm not being out of line on that, but,
No, a lot of boards allow 1 minute, so it's
yes.
fair.
So, does anybody have public comment?
Can I ask Jeff a question?
Yes, that's what this is about.
Jeff, $69 million you're talking about, is that the value when Turtle Creek comes online? We're at the 30%?
Yes.
Is that actually
And
27?
Yeah, it's prorated. It's prorated, you know, the first year is.
Right, 0.
0, and then as you know, or may not, so the new law, last January allowed 100% of the Turtle Creek to be on. The first two projects has a commercial rollback of 10%. The new project, the law was changed, so 100%. So you'll see it's actually a little more value when you look at my numbers because there is no commercial rollback on the Turtle Creek. But yes, it comes online a year from, this year's got 0%, then it'll go
Yeah,
5,
it
10.
was assessed for 19, and then in 20 it'll be at 0.
Correct.
And so it won't get to 30% until 2026.
That is, let's see, full value gets at assessment year 25, 26, 27, yes.
Yeah.
Budget year.
Yeah, so what's the value now that $32 million is against? I don't want to take my 3 minutes looking at this sheet, because he's watching the clock.
Okay, so what, your question is, what's the value without Turtle Creek?
Yes.
Okay, as this year, we are, fiscal year right now, we're gonna pull in just $2,697,000 annually. Then it's gonna go up to next year, $2,009,000. The first year for Turtle Creek in assessment year 20 is gonna add 270,000. So that's gonna jump us the first year 270,000, the next year 540,000, till it reaches $1.6 million annually.
Yeah, but when you said that the 32, we have $32 million of debt, or we have $35 million of debt?
That's the 32, is with interest. That's principal, and that's not, that's debt payments, principal and interest.
And that includes the most recent projects?
That includes, yes. That also includes, if they would approve this amendment today, all the projects that are in that.
So
Without that, there's $4,400,000 with interest on this amendment today. So you take 32 off of that, you're gonna be down to 28.
So the 69 million that you're talking about actually isn't there until 2026? Is that,
Yes, yeah, that is over the life of the issue.
okay.
Right, no, it's not,
Okay.
it's not,
Yeah, I'm
all
running
in
out
your,
of time.
it's not money sitting there today.
Running out.
I'm done.
Well, I'd say you got 3 minutes.
Well, you know, I apologize, I answered his time question, so I mean.
Yes.
Yeah, I have more questions.
I'm not gonna step on somebody's toes that much, but does anybody
Excuse
else
me.
have any comment?
Yeah,
Russell was the first one up.
what's gonna happen when them windmills shut down and we're not getting the revenue?
Meaning shut down like when they,
They're
Yeah,
done,
they're-
when
when
they're
they're
done,
useful
when they're
life,
done,
yes.
shut off.
yes,
And we don't have the revenue.
right. That's an excellent question. So and I'm glad you brought that up because this is what I've told many boards of supervisors or is because they got a useful life of 20 years, and let's say at the end of 20 years, they do not revamp them, and they've got money set aside to tear them down and pull them off. So all of that value goes off the books, okay? So a prudent thing to do is to do one-time projects, sort of like what the board is proposing. You get them and you pay for them, and they're all paid for by the time the useful life is done. If you don't do that, let's say you don't do these projects. No, I don't want to take his 3 minutes, but he just answer the question is if you just put all that value out there and not do the urban renewal and pay for roads, pay for conservation projects, do these, you just put them in the normal operational budget, everybody's budget goes up because they use the value that's out there. And then at the end of the 20 years, they've already increased their budgets up to that value, and then you have to pull it away. What happens is, when you yank that away, that forces taxes to go up on all the others. So that's the real risk, is when this 20 years is up and they don't reinvest them. If you don't do one-time projects and pay them off and instead absorb them into a normal budget, you've got a crisis coming in the future. Does that make sense? So the answer is, all of these projects that they're looking for is paid off well before the life of these projects.
How's that, how's that?
How is it off?
Tax money,
Pardon?
How's that paid off?
tax money.
It's paid off with the taxes from the wind turbine. All of these projects are paid for with just the revenue off of the turbines, not the property taxes of the values of everybody else's. It's just.
I understand what you're saying, but, well, what happens when that gets shut down and you still got those bills?
No, these will be all paid.
You sure?
Absolutely. These are
How
paid.
can you guarantee that?
Because right now, we have no debt outstanding. I mean, the debts that we did on the 2009 and 10 roads, those are paid off in 2021,
Wait a minute, you're not answering my question.
okay?
Is you're projecting this project, and every year we're projecting projects, and every year we're projecting, and next year they shut them windmills off, and we still got projects to pay for.
Oh, you're saying if they shut them off tomorrow?
Yeah,
Our 3-minute time limit is up.
I understand
So-
that, but you never answered the question.
Well,
Well,
but
I think you did.
there's
No, you didn't.
income comes in every year.
Up until the point that they shut them off.
Okay, now,
They're not predicted to shut off.
Anyways,
Before
stand
20
up,
years.
state your name, please.
Stand up.
Yeah, stand up, I should have been.
Okay, I don't know, I gotta stand up, that's kinda weird. Anyways,
State your name.
I'm Matt Pitson, and I'm from Stacyville, Iowa.
And I got a phone call from you and we couldn't get a hold of you, but anyways, go ahead.
I
Barb
got
did,
it.
thank you, Barb. Anyways, I'm 36 years old, okay, and I think it's a really good thing. I'm willing to spend $200,000 of my own money in Stacyville Industrial Park, okay? $200,000, you're gonna tax me on that. I'm 36 years old. I don't plan on going nowhere. I mean, I got a lot of years to pay taxes that they're gonna generate from this money, okay? Plus, I might even employ people if I get big enough. Plus, I'm gonna stick $60,000 of my own money into cars that is gonna generate more for the people. So I'm just trying to say, I think it's a really good idea. And if the funds weren't there for this, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I lived in Sioux City. I got lucky in 2008 when the crisis were going bad. I bought some property. Value went up. I got lucky. But then I liked Stacyville, so I moved back to Stacyville. Okay. And then this project, I just think it's a really good thing for it. I mean, I'm not rich by no means, so I don't know where they're coming from. It's helping the rich. But do you realize I'm going to build a $135,000 Morton building on 2 acres? I just think, I don't know how to tell you guys, but I think that's just I mean, it's a great thing for the community, is all I'm saying.
And so everybody's aware, you work with used cars.
Yeah, I buy cars. So I'll buy 2 cars and make 1 into 2. I turn around and let's just say I have, give you an example. I paid $5,000 for a 2010 Yukon Denali, okay? The mechanic said that it needed $4,000 worth of work. I actually did the work for $1,000. So I have $6,000 into it. I could put it on a lot, easily ask $15,000 for it, okay? And sell it, or they can come to me and say, hey, you know, I got $4,000 down and I'll give you $300 a week or $300 a month payments to me, since I own the title. So
And those people that are concerned about that we wouldn't be helping lower income people, this definitely would. This would be for people that cannot.
So I had a car lot in Sioux City, okay? And I did the same thing over there. I don't deal with the people, I would like to deal with the people that go into banks and get the loans, but I deal with the people that that can't go to the loans, but they need a car to get to work, get to the babysitter, get to the grocery store, whatever. So, you know, I have values of cars of, I don't know, what's the cheapest one? I don't know, $1,000 maybe, all the way up to $10,000, you know, just upon where you work, like, you know what I'm saying? And it helps the people that can't go into the bank and get a loan. And to be honest with you, the only reason I consider it is because you guys are willing and able to help businesses come into Mitchell County, okay? I mean, if I took $200,000 and spent it anywhere else, they wouldn't get the taxes. I'm just saying. I mean, I could spend $200,000 in Sioux City and put a business up in Sioux City. What's that help in Mitchell County? So they're only trying to help. I'm not rich by no means. I got lucky in the real estate, yes I did. But I have to get a loan, I have to use my own money, I have some investments I have to sell to try to get this car lot to get up and going, you know? I'm totally for it. I mean, I think, I don't know. I'm just totally for it, so that's all I can say.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Anybody else have any comments? Yes.
Ken Pitts in Statesville. I don't know, maybe getting back to Russ's question, maybe explaining it, the way I see it is you're borrowing money against the windmills now and helping businesses start now and generate, and then they will be paying taxes on these businesses when the windmills aren't paying taxes anymore. It's just investing now to have tax money coming in where the windmills aren't.
That's what I'm saying. I'm 36, they're gonna tax me the rest of my life. That building's gonna be taxed.
It's just another way of looking at it, I think.
I'm gonna get taxed.
Thank you. That was a short question or comment. Anybody else have any comments? Tony, I didn't even see you stick your hand up. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure Russ got his question answered. Your concern that should they shut it off, and well, all of a sudden that revenue sits there and it's not there. That's a legitimate concern and a good question. But the fact is that is a valuable asset that if something were to happen with the company, it's an asset that somebody else would come in and buy. They may get a windfall sale on it, but the taxes that are generated from it are still going to be there. There's still going to be a liability that even if they come in and buy it cheaply because they made some mistakes, is that money is still going to come to the county.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying was, 20 years down the road, when they wear out,
Sure.
and we're still
we won't be.
making those.
And that's what I think we're trying to make sure you understand is that the term of the loan is before the useful life is up. So it's just like you buying a car. You're borrowing money to pay for a car, and you're hoping that it's going to last longer than your payments are.
No,
And
you're
that's
still
the
not
same
getting.
thing.
You're still not getting my question.
Wait, one more time, because I think I am, but go ahead.
My question is, as long as you're still making loans every year to do something, up to the 20 years.
Right.
And those get shut off.
But
Yeah,
closer to the 20 years,
you're assuming that
we
we're going
might
to keep
not.
doing that up till the 20 years, but the term of what we're borrowing money and to pay back, that's all we're making sure that the time that's on the loan
I understand
all
that.
fall within that. So
I
when
understand
the
that.
20 years is up, we're not going to owe any more money. That's the
I
issue.
understand that, but you're doing it this year for less than 20. But you're always, every year, you're doing a loan for less than the 20, every year, but then all of a sudden, them all get shut off at 20 years from now.
The way that we are structuring it is that all the debt will be paid before that possibility arises. So no, I am answering a question because the timing of the notes that we're creating all fall within the useful life of the windmills.
Okay,
Russ, it doesn't mean that the supervisors will still be doing a project every year close to that 20 years.
well, but you're always getting told them windmills are not gonna get shut off. But all of a sudden,
No, we
No.
know that's a very real possibility.
No,
Okay.
I'm
That's a
telling you,
possibility.
my scenario is they are done at 20 years.
okay,
And we are not, and we will not loan any money out that is.
past that
No,
20 years when they start.
Because the bondholders who are buying this are only knowing they're getting the money from there. And so they will not, I will not sell them any debt that's more than what this projected revenue. And then
From the time they were built.
from the time they were built. Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. My bank, our bondholders would not buy them in any scenario that was open.
So is that like, kinda like a house loan? You know, you pay off so much, it's gonna be paid off, you can't borrow more than the house?
No, but a house loan, you can always go
All
in
right,
and
before we get this
refinance
into a
it.
general discussion, we're gonna move on. Is there any other comments? Al?
Al Winters, county resident here. I might go a little past the 3 minutes, but not much.
No? Okay.
This morning, I will speak against the resolution adding an additional properties to Mitchell County's urban renewal plan and incurring any additional debt above providing for the road rock. I'd like to ask Mr. Heil a question. How do you get paid?
How do I get paid?
How do you get paid?
I get paid on bond sales.
Correct.
Yes.
You get paid on adding or selling debt to Mitchell County. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Just so everybody's clear on his position here.
Good. No.
Supervisors, it's time for a reality check. Our county currently has debt that is unprecedented. The current amount of debt is somewhere around 35 million, you're saying 33 million. If you go to the Iowa Department of Management website, you can get the exact number. That equates to $3,187 for every man, woman, and child in Mitchell County. Previous supervisors in Mitchell County have committed 24% of the county's property to urban renewal. This is a big deal. It negatively affects property owners whose property is not classified as urban renewal. The Iowa Department of Management issues a report each year that sets the county's property valuations for every taxing authority in the county. It differentiates between TIF property and property available to tax for county services. In fact, the tax rate is calculated 24% higher for property because of TIF. This is necessary because the base property values are frozen whenever a property is added to urban renewal. If you don't believe in these numbers, you can check with the county assessor, because we went through these numbers and we can verify this for you. Any increase in the property's valuation is then committed to pay debt that has been acquired through TIF. Mitchell County has the highest valuation of property committed to TIF in Iowa. Let me repeat this in another way. Mitchell County has the highest valuation of property committed to debt service in Iowa. We are a debtor county. This year, 2019, Mitchell County would pay over $1 million in interest. Total payments on debt are over $4 million. That is $1 million in interest that forever leaves Mitchell County. It's gone. It was generated here, but it's gone. Paid to the people he works for. Last June 2018, the Board of Supervisors borrowed $1.2 million for a commercial construction program. According to records from the auditor's office I received in late March, only $580,000 had been dispersed under that program. That means more than half, $620,000, remained unallocated. Now you want to borrow $2 million more for construction incentives? Why? Interest has been accruing and being paid on $620,000 of unused TIF money for housing.
Al?
Will you defer to me your time, Russ?
Yes.
On
Well,
May
that
2018, the
doesn't
board
cut it.
borrowed $150,000 for the Osage
Yeah, Al,
daycare
I
as a
think-
TIF project.
I I think we should.
Why are you bringing this up again this year?
This is
We're
all
on
stuff
because
we've heard from you
He's not
before
making any
anyway.
sense at all, and I'd
But
like
see,
to
you
be
don't
able to
wanna
have
hear the
public-
facts on
I'd
that.
like to be able to
That's-
have the public see what
doesn't make no sense.
kind of
Okay.
misstatements he's
I have a
making.
couple comments on that. First of all, Mr. Heil is being conservative with what he is. If he wanted to just do this to make money, he would be recommending that we spend the full amount. He is being more conservative and not recommending that, highly not recommending that. As far as Mitchell County being the highest property in debt, what you were talking about, does that mean that's a bad thing? Because we are actually doing a lot of things that other counties are not doing. We are being progressive. And you've heard the arguments about, we're really not that concerned about that this is getting paid back. It's getting paid back. As far as the half unused from economic development, do you want to address that at all, Tony?
Yes. The one thing I'd seen Mr. Renner's posting about this topic, and the 24% was something that really confused me. I didn't know where that came from, but when you explained it this, I understand where you're coming from. The fact is, the legislation that wrote the urban renewal district adds to the confusion. The amount of property that's in the urban renewal district, just because it's in the urban renewal district does not mean the property taxes are frozen or capped. Only in the area where the TIF dollars are being generated is that TIF level established. All of the other properties where the money can be spent on urban renewal projects that has no bearing on their taxation whatsoever. That still floats. Just because it's in the urban renewal district does not cap anything to do with taxes. Unfortunately, when the legislatures made the rules, they didn't foresee this era as TIF became expanded out. They should have come up with a different name to call the area where the money could be spent. Because when you call the same area where it can be spent and where it's generated the same thing, it adds to this confusion. And so in reality, it's the confusion of the legislation that's adding to some of this issue that we have here. But the fact is, the funds that are generated in the TIF area, and I would like to call the TIF area that, as opposed to the urban renewal. Because the urban renewal is the areas where we can spend the money. The TIF area is where it is generated. And this money being generated in the TIF area is money that's coming from outside the county. We are capturing those dollars, just as Jeff had said and Russ had alluded to, that what happens when it's all gone. The fact is, we are putting this into assets that are going to create value for the county in the long term. When Jeff put it in terms when he talked about if we allow this money to just go into everyone's budget, I can tell you there is not a taxing jurisdiction anywhere that if they're giving a windfall will not breathe a sigh of relief and say, oh, finally we've got something that we can do these projects we've been waiting to do forever. They'll hire extra people to work on the roads because I guarantee you every department that's out there is stressed and trying to figure out what are they going to do going forward. So it's of no fault and there's no evil intent. Every agency that's out there is going to be able to spend any extra dollars that come to do more things. A lot of times you're adding, I'm sorry.
You know, I'd like to say something here. We're getting a lot of 3 minutes back here.
I'm good.
But I want to ask Tony a question. Have you looked at the Iowa Department of Management report as far as valuations that the assessor uses?
No, not at that rule.
Okay, that's what I want to clarify.
Okay, thank you, Al. Crystal?
You want me to stand up or?
Yes, you probably should. It's
Crystal Birch, Osage, Iowa. I just have one quick question. So what you're saying is if we're not using the TIF money and the projects still need to get done like the roads and everything, that would come out of taxpayer dollars and actually raise the taxes that we have to pay to get those projects done. Thank you.
Possibly, yes.
the way we are right now, they would.
However,
We
you have
did.
revenue coming in from the turbines, inflowing, that can go into the cash flow of the county to take care of that. So instead of spending the money ahead of time,
If we
you
did
spend
not,
it as it comes in.
Takes tax money to keep rolling.
If we did not use the TIF dollars, that money would go into our general fund and would lower the need, well, I should say it would be 24%, Al is correct on the 24%. You would get that money, would come out of your coffers, would go to your roads, sheriff's department, and thus not having the need to borrow. But we have to go without borrowing and pay our debt off before that happens. Did that sink? Does that, do you understand that? And again, we all have, Stan has a different opinion, Barb has a different opinion, and I have a different opinion. And each and every one of you in here has a different of opinion on some of this stuff. And that's what makes us individuals. But that's what we have to figure out and come together in some type of an agreement, which normally leaves some sore heads. Anyways, is there any other questions, comments? Anybody got anything they want to address us here?
All I gotta say is it takes money to make money. Think about that at the end of the day.
All right.
So he gotta speak again, can I speak again?
Well, let's move on.
That's not fair.
Well,
It's your own money.
and let's
We didn't know he was gonna talk.
Oh, I'm
let's
that's not
let's.
right.
All right, Russ,
He
you
got in what,
you
6
have a little
words?
chance here.
I've got a relative in Des Moines, Iowa. He's the largest developer in Des Moines, Iowa. He borrows no money from taxpayers. All of his projects are approved and signed for by his customers before he digs a hole in the ground. He's the largest developer in Des Moines, Iowa. He builds over 100 houses every year, homes, not cheap ones. And Des Moines grows only because of developers like him that puts his foot forward and doesn't ask the taxpayers for money. Now, Osage in Mitchell County is not fortunate enough to have any developers that want to do that. And so therefore, they speculate and build houses and then want the taxpayers to bail them out. And in my own mind, they're taking advantage of the taxpayers. They're taking advantage of what's being offered to them. And sometimes, some of these things are out of most of our hands, and we can say what we want to say. But you're gonna do what you want to do to the best of your ability. And I feel that if you give it some serious thought, if you feel you're doing the right thing for the county, you have to answer that yourselves and nobody else. All right?
It is a tough decision, Russ. I tend to be on the conservative side, but I really do see the value of some of these TIF projects in the long run.
And again, as I stipulated, we all three up here we're all different thoughts and opinions. We're all different.
That's a good thing.
And anyways, I don't see any more hands up in the air, so we can move on with this, and I suppose this is where we close it.
Closed session.
And you are going to have to help me through this, Lowell, because I'm not
You
really.
wanna know, you wanna explain the procedures that will go forward?
Yeah.
Okay, so here, today is, you held the hearing to public input. Now you're gonna have the resolution to approve the amendment to the urban renewal. This does not mean you're gonna do anything. All you're doing today is giving the board authority to add these projects to the urban renewal. The next step that you have on your agenda is setting a public hearing for financing on July 2nd.
July 9th.
Or July 9th. Okay, forgive me. So you're gonna set a date today for the 9th. That would be actually doing commitment to do the projects. Today, I wanna make clear what you're voting on today is just amending the urban renewal area so that you have the possibility to do any one or all of these projects. So you're not committing any dollars, you're not committing any debt today, you're just voting on the urban renewal area. Then the 9th of July, you'll hold the public hearing on the amounts that was in the numbers that I gave you, the 3.8 million, up to. That's when you would vote on that. And then there'll be a petition date up to that date, and if anything comes in, then we would not issue any debt till after that date to know that you want to proceed. So I just want to make clear what you're going to vote for today is just the plan, okay? That make sense?
Yes,
Okay, did that help?
yes.
So now, Steve, we have item number 7, resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area pursuant to section 403.4 of the Code of Iowa and approve the urban renewal plan amendment for the Volusia County urban renewal area. Resolution's number 1036-19.
So move to approve.
Okay, Stanley has made a motion.
Seconded.
Barb has seconded it. Roll call, Stanley.
Steve, you should ask for discussion if there's
Oh,
any other discussion.
excuse me. Discussion, any from the public? Any
No,
comments?
this is from the board.
From the board. Alrighty. Stanley?
Again, I think these are all good projects. We've spent many, many months, actually years, discussing all of this. It's been explained by Mr. Heil, I believe also County Attorney Walk, and that these are prudent things that we are doing that in the long run is going to benefit the county. And if we didn't do things like this, it would be really more foolishness on our part not taking advantage of the opportunities that we have. So I would fully recommend that, like Mr. Heil said, that we're right now only at 47% of actual utilization, and
Which is less than last time around.
yes,
Because
and
that was one thing that I had said I would spend less in tip. I never said I would do without tip, because I do see the value of it.
so, but you know, at the end of 20 years, we hope to utilize 100% of this. As time go on, that's the best utilization. Is that correct, Mr. Heil? That we try to,
It's a policy set by you.
yeah, I mean,
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that, but
Any other comments? I have no comment other than, what was that resolution number?
1036-19.
M36-19. Okay, Stanley has made a motion, Barb has seconded it. Roll call, Stanley,
aye.
Barb,
I,
Smolik, aye. We'll move on down to resolution taking action to set public hearing on proposals to enter into general obligation loan agreements to borrow money, and it sounds like July 9th is that date?
At 9 a.m.
So, no public comment on this one then. This is all closed yet. Okay. Any comments from supervisors?
no, the only ones that I can think of offhand that spoke up to me against this did give their piece today.
Okay, so would you like to make a motion?
For accepting this resolution? Or is
Setting
that-
the public hearing.
Setting the public hearing?
Oh, for July 9th at
Yes.
9 a.m., yes.
Barb has made a motion.
moved.
Second?
Stanley has made the second. Roll call. Barb?
Better ask for discussion, please.
Yes. All right.
Rules of order.
Again, it's good that we're setting a date of July 9th to move forward.
No more discussion.
Now you can take your vote.
Okay. Roll call. Barb?
Aye.
Stanley?
Aye.
Smollett guy. So that resolution has been passed. What was the number on that resolution?
1037-19.
All righty, thank you for working with me. County attorney'd like to choke me. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not the smartest person here, doing this stuff.
Mr. Chair, as long as the county attorney is here, we had an issue raised earlier after you left the first time. And it had to do with the progressive meeting. And basically, Barb feels like she should not be in attendance to Lindsay Falk's progressive meeting if I'm also there, just because there'd be two supervisors at the meeting. Is this a problem as long as we don't, as long as we're there to listen and not...
If you only listen and don't discuss, the problem comes when you discuss things. Even if you're not discussing things with Stan, if you're discussing with Lindsay and then Lindsay's asking Stan and then Stan's answering, you're hearing each other, that's an issue. So if you go to the meeting and Stan only talks, that's not a problem. If you only talk, that's not a problem. But if you're both, at any time during the night, you're discussing something, then you run into a problem.
And that was my concern. That's why I do not want to be there, because I'm afraid that that is exactly what would happen.
Yeah. So as long as you say, well, I'm gonna go, but I'm just gonna sit here and listen, you're 100% okay. If afterwards, if somebody comes up and talks to you and asks you questions, you're okay. But you and Stan can't get together afterwards and talk.
I told him that I would fill in if he could make it. I think there's no reason why we both need to be there, because I think he can update us.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Hopefully, we'll have the hearing on the 9th and see how things proceed. Oh, you had a good opportunity today, Steve.
Did you?
You did well.
I had a question, earlier about the excess money from the Port Authority. Did you have time to look into that?
Oh, whether we could use that for...
The hearings, yeah, which go ahead. I need to double check before I make full statement. It looks like you'll be able to move it over to secondary road and spend that. But
Okay.
because I think we got a hearing, but I want to check
That
one
would
more.
be wonderful.
Yeah.
I was
The
wondering
question-
about that too.
Yes.
The question I had for Jeff was, we had allocated before $400,000 for this Port Authority study. It looks like in reality, we're gonna use $60,000 or somewhere in that neighborhood. And there's gonna be 340,000, maybe 350,000 left on the table. Could we move that into, right now, into secondary roads to help on gravel and that, again, above and beyond?
On road improvement. And what we're doing is we're going back, I'm looking at the excess hearings that we didn't borrow on other, so that we've actually had official hearings on other road projects. So if we have enough excess, and I've got a couple of them are checked, then it doesn't matter where you spend it, as long as we've had the proper hearing. And that's what I'm double checking on those hearings.
So
if you had
we're trying to help our rural people as best we can with the assets that we have.
And that would be wonderful to use that strictly on the rocks and roads. Although I'm not so sure we don't even need an extra person to get this done faster.
That's Rich's decision down the road.
Yeah,
An extra person wouldn't do that.
to help get the projects done faster.
Well, Steve's an employee, he can actually help out, I mean,
I offered.
It doesn't, you can't use it on labor. You gotta have it on product. You know.
no, I mean, he can drive a
I
dump
think
truck,
she
yes,
was
you
talking
just
about
don't
They
get
don't
paid.
want me.
management of the
Huh?
department,
They don't want
because
me.
we're so busy, I don't know.
Well, I worry about you because I know you're getting
Who doesn't want
crazy
Hear
calls.
that, so-
I offered to do it free.
Well,
We're doing best we can.
we'll have that,
And
we'll
I
have
know
that
you
discussion again.
Anyways, moving on here. I think we
Why
went
don't
through.
we take a 5-minute recess, Mr. Chair?
Do you want a 5-minute recess? I do too. Alrighty, 3-minute, 5-minute. Let's
That way, totally.
call the meeting to order and,
I know him. Yeah, yeah.
Russell. All right, Renee,
Hello, everybody.
we'll let you have the hot seat again.
Okay.
I will let you know what, I had all that. What did I do with all that stuff?
Well,
What,
Lowell would have given me this today.
well, I mean, I had what she's got. Here,
Oh,
I had it.
I don't have
my
a
desk got
full
cleaned
thing.
off,
I
so.
just, yeah.
Anyways, Renee,
I think I can, well, two things I thought, that, so you guys, who's that? That was for the handbook. So the one so I thought today what I would, I wanted to like just give you kind of an update on where we are in the employee handbook, which we're almost done. We had 2 employee meetings where all the department heads were there. And so there's still a few areas that, I still have highlighted, and I thought maybe there's a couple areas that I think are definitely going to need board of supervisors, so I thought maybe I would just tell you those couple areas so you can be thinking about that. We weren't gonna adopt this or anything today, it was just kind of give you a summary of, where we are. And then I had also sent a, proposal on, the, HR services. So, but Lowell just said maybe you don't have that.
yeah,
I have her letter.
Okay. I mean, it's pretty short, it's only 1 page. So this is just, what I've been finding, over the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years that, and no surprise to any of you, the whole area of HR questions is getting more frequent, it's getting more complex. What I'm finding is that department heads, really, I think for the most part, would just like to be able to pick up the phone or email and walk through an issue or a question regarding anything related to HR. I mean, it might be an attendance issue, it might be a policy, it may be just a reminder to them on their obligations under the County Medical Leave Act. So I feel like a wide variety of questions in that regard. So this proposal gives unlimited phone, email access to any management person in the county. It will also include continuing update on the employee handbook, and because you had such a big rewrite on this, I anticipate that we are probably gonna wanna go back and revisit this shortly. I mean, not before a year is over, but we had so much to rewrite here that we'll live with it for a year, 8, 9 months, and then there's probably gonna need to be some fine tuning. So that would all be included in that as well. And then also just to provide the county any updates on recent developments. Luckily, we haven't had any major ones come down the pike the last couple of years, but every once in a while, there'll be a new regulation or something on like the Fair Labor Standards Act or some issue, and then I'll make sure that the county is updated on those changes that may affect you. So that is, I also, the counties that I work with, I've worked with counties for so long, and I've got such a long ongoing relationship with counties that I work with that if there is ever a need for me to be here, I mean, if there's maybe a particular issue that comes up, where I need to come to the county, that's fine. I think I worked with counties so long that I know counties don't, we just sort of have an understanding. And if that becomes necessary, I certainly would come and do that, even though that's not included on the
Would that be a
annual fee.
separate price, are you saying?
I think if a county asked me to do that every year more than once, yes, but I'm just saying, I had some just this last week in Calhoun County, they had sort of a major thing going on and they needed to get their department heads together, and I said, sure. And we just included that in the HR.
That makes sense.
Yeah. It's just that, counties don't ever, people I work don't ever, for lack of a better word, take advantage. I mean, it's just really only when that's needed. So, like I say, I have worked with all my relationships with counties have been really long term. So, that's just kind of just happens sometimes, and it doesn't happen very often. So that's a little bit about that program. Do you have any questions on that? It's really designed to be.
Her all-inclusive annual fee would be $4,500 if you didn't see the letter.
A lot of times, I will see a board, you guys, usually when we're in bargaining or when we're updating the handbook, but most often, in other counties that I deal with, the board may not be aware of how often I talk with department heads. Usually it's particularly the auditor's office, because that's where the benefits and payroll and, they're sort of the go-to people. So like I say, it's really for a department head to be able to have pretty immediately somebody on the other end of the line that they can talk to. The whole idea is to keep small problems small, from it getting to be a larger problem. So, anything else I can answer on that?
Did you happen to talk with Pam or Shannon about this at all? Did they ever give any input? Okay.
I did get, was it Pam? I did get an email question from Pam, the other day on the Family Medical Leave Act. So when I was here last time, I just stopped up with Lowell, and we were just sort of standing around, and she had a question on Family Medical Leave Act, and then she had a follow-up question that she emailed me.
Well, that's kind of what I wondered, if that kind of thing is taking up too much of their time. I don't know. I have some random thoughts. I thought your price sounded very reasonable, but I'm also thinking that I doubt that we will update this handbook every year. And as far as you offered some training, we'll already be paying Heartland Insurance for some of this training. I'm not so sure that we can't even suggest to them. They're always asking for new ideas of what we might want covered, if we wanted to cover employee handbooks with them. So we're already gonna be paying for that, so that was just kind of the only comments I really had. I do agree with you that it probably there'll be some kinks, since it had been so long for changing, that we might wanna look again already next year, just to make sure we're.
And I'm not saying every year you'll need to do it,
I was gonna say, then I think after that,
yeah.
we can probably wait 3 years maybe or something.
Yes, I think that's pretty much sometimes it gets even stretched to 4, but I think ideal is like every 3 years, because then it is, like we talked about, it's not such a big project.
Right,
Yeah.
it's just this one time.
Yeah, I think the feedback I get from the counties that I work with is, they just really appreciate having somebody that they can talk over an issue with. I mean, a lot of times the department heads, I think, know what they wanna do, but there's maybe just kind of a confidence factor there, and so we'll even do some role playing. Like, okay, here's a conversation with an employee, so we get past that reluctant to have a difficult conversation. Difficult conversations are difficult. And so that, I think they have found, counties that I work, departments that I work with have found that to be very helpful.
Well, I just even with that 22 county social services, it was brought up that it's nice to have an outside person that they don't feel will be biased in their thoughts
Right,
to question. Yeah, and I get that.
right.
And the Family Medical Leave Act is very difficult to understand.
More complicated,
And
isn't
you
it?
wanna be consistent how you're doing it and doing it
Yep.
in the right way, because if not, the employees really have, if it ever comes to that, they pretty much have a lot more.
And sometimes, you know, these are not major things. You know, sometimes I think department heads find themselves in the role of management, and not really have that in their background. So I had a phone call from the auditor the other day, and she was really kind of very upset that she had to have a conversation with an employee about this employee using her cell phone all the time.
It's not in their job description technically.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you wanna say, well, just sit down and talk with them about that. But that is not easy for a lot
Some
of
people are very uncomfortable with that.
And, you know, you small office, and she had lost sleep over it, you know, thinking about how she was gonna have this conversation. And so we just talked through it. It didn't involve any employment law, you know, it wasn't any like big deal, but it was a big deal to her. I mean, having that conversation was a big deal to that auditor. And I get a lot of gratitude. It's very fulfilling for me to help with those types of areas, so. Yeah, so that's, like I say, that's 4,500, which, you know, I really did try to keep it so that it wouldn't be cost prohibitive. That there would be access at a.
And you said that they could, so anybody could call you at any time, or
Any-
well, any reasonable time.
Again, I think my longevity is because I am so accessible. I mean, I make a point that it's either that day and it's no later than the following day. And people know that if they've not heard back from me, they will call and email again, because that just means something fell through
That's
the
how I
cracks.
feel even when we're questioned, that I wanna get back to them as soon as possible.
It's, nothing is really an emergency, we tend to think it is, but when you're going through something and you've got an employee issue, or you really wanna talk to somebody right now.
It means a lot to them.
Yes.
I don't know, what are you guys' thoughts?
I think she's doing great. I'm not gonna say anything other than keep it up. I mean, this,
Well, do you wanna go as far as hiring her though annually for $4,500?
oh, okay.
That's what I'm asking.
Stanley, your comment.
Yeah, in one respect, you know, we've gotten along for years and years without really. But in the other respect,
Knock on wood.
yeah, the other respect is things keep getting more and more difficult. I don't care which direction you go. Everything is getting more difficult. It's gonna, and attorneys basically rule the roost anymore. So you try to, like you say, have as much preventive. It's something we can afford. I mean, to that extent, it's, I guess we could, is this basically a year-to-year contract?
You know, in my 30-plus years, I've never required any county to sign a contract. So I've always
I mean, we
taken the
could-
position that if you're happy, great, I'm happy, and if you're not, I've never had that
I
happen.
mean, we could
but-
give it a try if, in a couple of years, of course, we could have all 5 new board members in 2 years, so.
Yeah.
You know, and we can basically, but, like I say, we can give it a try and reevaluate things here in the next year or two.
Would you like to make a motion on that?
I'm for
Your
it.
thought?
I'm for it too.
Your thoughts, Mr. Tesh?
I think it's very wise because, in fairness to our county attorney, a lot of these things aren't his expertise, and in the past, we've asked to meet with him, and sometimes you say you'll talk with us that day or the next day. Sometimes it's well over a week before we can have a meeting with him, based on his schedule. This way we can reach out and you work with it, so. I mean, ultimately, the county attorney gets involved, but you don't get your answer, or.
Sometimes the county attorney looks at it and says, well, it can be interpreted this way, and it can be interpreted that way.
Well, that's not.
That's not the
that don't
answer
cut
we
it.
want.
No, it doesn't help.
I mean, anybody can give that answer.
Correct.
Okay,
You
so,
don't have to have a law degree to do it.
Stanley has made a motion,
I'll second it.
Barb has seconded it. Roll call, Stanley,
aye.
Barbara,
Aye.
Smolik, aye. And I apologize, I didn't understand what you were asking.
Fine.
So, but yes, this is passed. Motions.
Well, we do have, we also have possibly bargaining coming up this fall too, so
Yeah, I'm sure that it is coming out.
we'll be here. So we have the retention election and lots of fun stuff coming up.
Did you want to bring up some of those questions you had about, was it just in the last part that you needed some clarification? Or?
On the handbook.
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah, I was kind of more thinking on that, what we were gonna be discussing.
You know, wonder if, it would be easier if I would, the department heads, for example, had some suggestions on some areas like, being able to allow an employee to donate some vacation leave, you know, so for, if an employee has run out of time and they've got some sort of catastrophic illness.
Other employees donating
Right, vacation, not sick leave, but vacation. And then another department had suggested that possibly some sick leave be, used.
Do very many counties allow that?
I wouldn't say it's a lot, but I think as long as you only allow vacation, that's a cost neutral proposition for the county.
Because we'd be paying it out anyway.
Anyway, I would not advise that you would allow like sick leave donation.
I agree with
just
that, yeah, you
vacation.
wouldn't, that would
I
get.
mean, how do you track all
That
that?
could be.
No,
way
we've
out
done
of hand.
that in the past, and really what's happened was, just for argument's sake, let's say that you have 120 days of sick leave, and so you want to donate 10 days, like you say, and after a year or two, you're back to 120 days. You didn't donate anything.
Exactly.
I mean, is that,
Yeah.
if you would, I don't even necessarily mind that if then, if they wanted to donate 10 days, it goes from 120 to 110, and that's where the, you know, that you actually are gonna lose that 10 days or whatever.
Right.
But no, I mean, we've had that in the past with somebody with secondary roads
Right.
and.
You just sort of do it on a case by case.
I think we should, yeah, as far as in writing, just stick to, if you wanna do the vacation, like you said, we wouldn't be out anything anyway, correct?
Not on vacation, no.
Becomes the problem tracking it.
Yeah. The other thing that, another example was a couple department heads suggested that a certain number of days be allowed of sick leave be allowed to be used for illness of a family member. And of course, all the department heads concluded on those issues, that's really a board call. So I wonder if it would be easier is as you go through, we can get you a full draft with the highlights, but then I can flag those particular areas where I think you'll need to decide, yeah, we're okay with this, but no, we just as soon for now leave this status quo.
I'm actually okay with that. I don't know how many other counties do it, but I do know some do. But Lowell, you think that there would be a trouble with tracking that other thing?
So, just with the system and say somebody gets it and somebody don't, you're gonna create some pretty hard feelings.
Oh, okay, I
But
get
it's
that.
between the two, the donator and the one that gets the,
But then
But I
Pam
think-
has to track that, I mean, it goes through our solutions and how that comes out on your paycheck every week. I mean, we don't because we don't get sick leave or vacation, but making that.
And say that
vacation
person, because they favor one person more as their friend, they give it to
Yeah.
them, and somebody else that actually needed it more doesn't get it,
Right.
then there's where the hard
You
feelings
get
would
some
come in.
Personalities there and.
I guess that's what makes us all different.
But that might be a thought of why not to do it,
I mean,
period.
if you're gonna do it for one, you better do it for them all.
No, but it's a volunteer thing. I mean, that's one thing that you can't,
Yeah, that's
So,
between the
I mean,
employees.
No, we can
if
stop
I
it.
feel that so-and-so's a friend, I mean, that's.
No, I get that, but
I guess as far as the family sick part,
Be something to check on.
I've seen that already at work. I've seen that at the county road department. I got a cough. Now, their kid's sick, and they were at home.
And then you see them uptown.
Well, as long as Betty didn't.
But still,
it's too bad because just a few would ruin it for the people that do use it just
See,
legitimately.
that's the part, see, Betty caught, Tom told me that one time, he had well, Tom was over at Mason City at Kmart or Target shopping, and Betty come up to him, "What are you doing here, Tom? Why ain't you at work?" Well, she checked out on him.
it wasn't vacation.
It wasn't vacation. So. I guess it's
So
up to
the-
you guys.
Yeah, but, these were just, suggestions that 90% of the handbook was really kind of getting it up to date with what you were currently doing, getting the family and medical leave up to speed, deciding on things like what was gonna count as hours worked for purposes of computing overtime. But then there was just these couple areas that were an expansion of the benefits. And the two that I think the major ones was the donated leave and then using some of the sick leave for family illness. Those were really the two areas that were expanded. A suggestion.
I guess not necessarily has to be a kid involved, but if somebody has a parent that's going with cancer or something, that being able to,
I believe the 22 counties put that in, that they could do that. And they actually listed who would qualify for, because
I
some
can see
people
that
are
point.
paying for, or caring for elderly. And they have nobody else to get them to the doctor.
There comes a time when you have that situation where you may want to have that ability.
Here's the language that said, subject to the following restrictions, eligible employees may use accrued sick leave for care of and necessary attention to the mental or physical health of his or her spouse or dependent children 18 years of age or younger. So we put a limitation on that. Use of sick leave for this purpose is limited to 5 days per calendar year and must be used in half-day increments. So those were the parameters that were.
Well, another option is unpaid time off. I mean, if you gotta take somebody,
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
I mean,
Or
why does the county,
vacation.
why does the county have to basically subsidize? I mean, but if you want the day off, like you say, that, if it's that important and that,
Take it without paying it. Or not with it.
It does require another tracking. I mean, it does require the department head and the auditor's office to have a separate
well, but
mechanism.
if you want these
to
things, I mean,
track.
it's gonna be tracked somehow regardless.
all right.
In theory, it sounds good, but I mean, if you're in a private business, it's a whole different situation. But you're in a government setting,
So you think basically, Stanley, leave it the way it is?
Mhm.
You're sick, you're sick. Vacation is your vacation. Barb,
I have mixed feelings, but I would be fine with leaving it.
let's leave it. Or do we have to have a vote on that?
No.
No, I think
then we have a final.
this is just for me, and then I'll send the final. This is just for me to know whether to leave that in or take it out. And then, on the donated leave, we put some parameters around that. It's just vacation. They have to have exhausted all their leave. Donations are limited to 40 hours. Once the donation has been transferred to the donor, it's, can't come back, it's irrevocable.
Basically, though, we probably don't wanna change that then either.
See, that's what I'm thinking, if you do for one, do the same for the
Yep,
other.
I mean, yeah, if
Be
we wanna,
consistent.
do the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid. I mean.
Okay, so how would this, sorry, I'm not understanding, so do it for one,
No, he's saying we don't want that.
If we don't, I guess, we don't wanna do it for that, donating their vacation, we don't wanna probably do that. If it's gonna be an issue, leave it the way it is.
Yeah, I suppose somehow you'd have to, in the system, you'd have to take it from the one and add it to the other. And that's maybe something Pam could do.
and there's nothing that says, even if it's not in your employee handbook, that you couldn't do something case by case.
Extenuating
I mean, that's, and that's
circumstances that-
typically how it's being done in counties. Some counties have policies,
In other
but
words,
quite
leave it up
frankly,
to the board.
it's not really being used it doesn't get implemented very often, because it is really only for somebody who's had this really catastrophic thing.
County Attorney Watt keeps on telling us this is not a contract, it's basically a
Guideline.
guideline.
Guidelines,
And so,
Yeah. yeah.
Yeah, we could just do it case by case if it happened to come
And
up.
that would be up to us, it wouldn't
Right.
have to be in the handbook
Right.
then.
And that's one of
Kinda
those
takes-
things that if you have something like that come up, we can then draft some parameters for that particular situation.
Like you were talking about 40
Right.
hours and whatnot,
Yeah.
yes.
And it takes that out of the department heads.
Yes,
Because
yeah, yeah, okay.
so they go along with one, but they don't with another employee, and then you get it.
I mean, on the vacation thing, I mean, you're actually giving something up. I mean, that's the one thing. And that's why I wouldn't not necessarily mind that, like I say, if I was working here and I was willing to not have any vacation this year, but you were sick and you needed that.
Well, at one time, and this has been many years ago, when Artie Tomey was here, he only had a month to go before he had his 30 years in. And we at the road department tried to donate vacation time to get him, so he got his 30 years in. But mentally, physically, he couldn't work anymore. Supervisors wouldn't let us go along with that. So Artie didn't get his 30 years in. But anyways, that's in the past. Artie's gone. Anything else?
You know, I think that was it. I don't think the department has, and I suppose we could send this one final time out to everybody, speak now or forever hold your peace. But I think this could be ready to come to you guys. Should I leave these highlights in so you can see those before? Some of them I can take out. If there's something that is quite different from like your current policy or something, I'll leave that highlighted and flag that for you.
Okay.
But I think if you review it, we could give the department heads, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't. I mean, sometimes we can just open it up again. I honestly really think this needs to be just it needs to be adopted. Let's get it.
I wouldn't go back to
Let's
the
get it
department
going.
heads.
The kinks
They
will
have their
work, the
chance.
kinks will show themselves as the months go by. We'll keep, we'll make notes as what needs to be revised.
That's what we had to do with the 22 counties. We just got to the point,
Sometimes
okay,
you
you've
just have
had
to
your
say
say.
that's
Use it for a
We've
while.
been over generous with letting you have your say.
Yes, yeah.
Use it for a
Okay.
while and sand off the rough edges after it.
Right.
Okay?
The only other thing I had is just, and you probably, you already know that the bargaining law changed in 2017.
Correct.
So we have a couple major things different here. One will be the retention election, coming up this fall. We have, one of the things that we'll need to make sure of, and then I work with the auditor's office. The auditor is the contact person from the Public Employment Relations Board. So we have some pretty stringent deadlines to meet. So we'll make sure we do those. If we don't meet those deadlines, then that means the election won't take place. So we don't want to be the reason why the election doesn't take place. So we'll be keeping tabs of that. The employees will vote in October, whether they wish to retain or not. But we will need to do the whole thing about the initial proposal has changed so substantially that we don't want to wait until that election is over. We don't have to have everything finalized, but we want to do some prep before that because you'll, as a board, need to decide sort of where you want to be on that whole continuum of bargaining now. This is a non-public safety unit, so everything basically is now a non-mandatory topic, which means one end of the spectrum is you can leave everything in the bargaining agreement except the prohibited items, or the other end of the spectrum, everything comes out of the bargaining agreement. So we will have to do some discussion on where you want to be on that whole continuum. That's kind of.
So basically you're saying that issues outside of money we can either leave in or not.
Right.
My initial on that is, again, I don't mind necessarily bargaining with the union because if it's something that they really seriously believe in, and we just absolutely say, nope, we don't want to talk about it. Nope, we're just absolutely, it causes bad relationships. And at least if we have those discussions, I think it makes for a much better working relationship with the employees that.
Yeah, we want to be open-minded.
I think one of the.
Steven, your idea?
I'll be honest with you. That bargaining contract works two ways. I mean,
Right.
it also holds them the employees to what the contract is. So,
Well, the one thing, over the years, I mean, we've tried to work with employees, and I really feel they, in turn, need to work with us. I mean, you know, comes the spring of the year, sounds like we're gonna have a major snowstorm, this and that. 2 of them went off to go to the state bowling tournament. Well, we've always said, yes, you can.
Yep.
But then, come summertime, when we needed a little additional help, then it was, well, state says we only have to give them 400 hours. We're not gonna let these retired employees work in the, you know, I mean, to me, that was wrong. You know, like I say, we try to work with them, they should work with us. And that's really what I felt is part of what we still have to try to.
there really isn't anything that we wanna jerk out of the contract.
There are some topics that have now been ruled be, the change to the law is that they're actually prohibited. So insurance, staff reduction, seniority, dues deduction are now prohibited. So even if the parties agree, you can't we can't have it in the bargaining agreement. Now, you can put it in a policy someplace else, but it can't be in the bargaining agreement. So there's certain things that will have to come out. Then the remaining items, I think one of the pluses of this is that it's really, I think, forced us to go take the bargaining agreement paragraph by paragraph and looking at it a little bit more closely. You know what happens year to year, you put language in there and then you just sort of ignore it and then you go back and you go, does this really even make sense anymore? So I think that's been helpful, is a lot of, you know, we've been kind of cleaning up a lot of bargaining agreements so everybody really understands what they say, but really kind of then just fine tuning the changes. I've had a lot of engineers tell me that the one area in the bargaining agreement that they would really like to see modified, not taken out, is the hours of work. Many engineers are telling me that it's gotten so far, it's really impacting their ability to manage their workforce. So we've just sort of we're going in and making those, not taking everything out, but maybe fine tuning some of those provisions.
So what would you change on the hours of work?
Well, if there's any areas in there that is inefficient, or some bargaining agreements really require that almost every single time the employer turns around, they're being paid, you know, there's overtime liability. That may not be the case here. That's where I talk with the engineer and say, okay, what areas of this bargaining agreement would you like to see modified or changed? So I usually start with the department head and get their input, and then I will come back probably late July, August. So we'll have that kind of a draft for you guys that Rich has had his input in, and then we'll go through it and see where, you know, you want to be as far as what would you be your ideal of the end bargaining agreement. Because I really agree with you, Stan. I think if we take something out, if the county proposes to take something out, but there's really not a good reason given other than, well, we can, I just don't think that sits very well with people. We should have a reason. We should have a reason, and that's bargaining.
Definitely.
And that's all legitimate. I mean, if
No, but even if we have a reason, we just don't pull it out. I mean,
you still talk about it.
You still discuss it.
Exactly.
I mean, that's,
Right,
Exactly.
it's important.
Yeah. Well, I think we're on, that's where I think I've seen the most success, is the counties, the boards that have taken that really more middle ground. Is, yes, let's go through this a little bit more carefully than we have in the past. The other thing on the initial proposal, we're now obligated to be a lot more specific. So our initial proposal will really be the copy of the entire bargaining agreement and identifying what's prohibited and, you know, what's permissive. So we have, it's sort of flip-flop that way. Before, our proposal was really short and the union's proposal tended to be really long, and now it's sort of the other way around, but we don't have much choice on that. So that'll be the next step, probably, is to figure out where we wanna be on that initial proposal. Then you'll get communications from the Public Employment Relations Board, I'll get it at the same time. And there's some things that will need to be given to, distributed to employees, we have to submit a voter list, that kind of thing. But most important thing is just meeting the timelines. I think the voting goes from October 15th to the 29th. We're not involved in that. PERB has hired an outside agency, so the employees vote by phone or on a website.
So all county, state, they all have this vote? This is to remove the union from?
Well, to decide whether they want, the employees decide whether they want to retain or not retain the union. And that was a big change in Chapter 20, the bargaining law. And anybody that's got a contract that's gonna expire the following June, they vote this fall. So this is Mitchell County's turn, this contract expires June 30th, 2020. So the secondary road employees will be voting.
Okay, I guess I didn't know that the vote was mandatory, I
It
guess.
is, yeah,
Well,
it's,
and if an employee doesn't vote at all, then that's a vote to get rid of the union.
so it's a no vote, because that was the other big change, it's the majority of the employees eligible. It used to be the majority of the employees who voted. Now the law says it's the majority of the employees eligible. So if somebody doesn't vote, that's really a vote to not retain. So that was a big change to Chapter 20, this whole retention thing. And it's kind of, like I say, the county's role isn't really big. The other things that we'll talk about when I come back in August is, this will be our third year that we've had these votes. We're the second state that has ever gone through this, Wisconsin being the only other one, so there's lots of questions. So employees will start getting these instructions from the Public Employment Relations Board. We have to distribute those. But employees, especially in a smaller county, are gonna wanna go to management and saying, can you help me with this vote? I don't understand this, how do we do that? And that's where PERB has said really loud and clear the last couple of years, management is to have nothing to do with it. There's a phone number the employees can call. Other questions that have come up is, can employees use the county computer to do this? Each county has to make those decisions. So in August, we'll just kind of go through those common questions so we can at least be a little bit prepared of when you get maybe those questions from employees, can we use the county computer to do this? Can we all get together after work in the shop with the county computer and vote? Those are some common questions that have come up the last couple of years. In general, the answer to those things is you need to allow what you would normally allow in other circumstances. So if you typically allow employees to use county equipment for something else, then you can't deny them to do that, for this reason. So it's kind of an individual county question and answer.
Yeah.
See, you're already helping us.
Yeah, so, it'll be just those things that'll come up, and the nice thing about this being the third year is we've had, some experience with what the questions are. That first year was really something, because it was all brand new, and then we learned something last year, and we thought it was going to be, okay, now the third year, we've got it down. Well, now they've changed some of the procedures, because the vendor that was doing the voting the last couple of years said they're not doing it anymore, so PERB had to go hire somebody else, so they have a little bit different procedure. So, what they say about change, it's the one constant. So that's coming down, that will probably take quite a bit of time here coming up. But in the meantime, I will be, talking with Rich, we'll kind of mark up the copy, he'll put his 2 cents in there, and then we'll have a session with you guys. And that'll be bargaining strategy, so that will be, you know, an exempt, session. Okay, anything else? Sorry, I probably, after your session, lively session this morning, you're probably ready to be out of here.
Actually, this session this morning didn't go as bad as I thought it was.
I was expecting worse.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
But thank you, Renee.
Well, thank you guys. I look forward to working with you.
Vice versa.
We will also, it was kind of good with the handbook. I got to know, you know, your department heads a bit better, you know, spending time with them. But I think maybe we should send an email. Maybe sometime I'll get an email, and I'll send an email to them saying, here's my contact information. So they can call. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.